And now, in studio, bringing his Midwest values from the Show Me State to the land of San Diego. He's a triple threat, licensed as an attorney, mortgage broker, and a top producing realtor who's crushing the competition. Here to deliver you what's happening in the trenches of the market. Your host, Michael Gaddis.
Welcome to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. I am your host, Michael Gaddis of michaelgaddis.com and frontierloangroup.com. And I am here every Monday night at 7 p.m. to talk about anything and everything related to real estate. So I want to talk a little bit today about kind of something we were talking about last week, which is purchasing homes. And when you purchase a home, as I was talking about last week, you've got to be really careful about the representation that you have. One of the problems that I tell people is, when you buy anything in your life, you usually do a lot of research on it. A lot of people will go and, if they're getting... Can you even hear me in there?
Yeah. You can't hear yourself?
No, something's not right.
Try plugging into another port.
This one?
Yeah. Try plugging another one. See if you can
Hello?
hear something. Oh.
Yeah, that did it.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that. I couldn't hear myself, and it was
right.
just really whack.
No,
So maybe we should just ring it over.
Sorry.
Whoa, that was loud.
Sorry about that.
Welcome to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. I am your host, Michael Gaddis. I am here every Monday night at 7 p.m. to talk about anything and everything about real estate. And as you know, some things not related to real estate. You can get more information about me on my websites, michaelgaddis.com and frontierloangroup.com. But other than that, let's get started today. So one of the things I want to talk about is a continuation of what I was talking a little bit about last week. And that's about purchasing a home and what kind of due diligence you as a buyer need to do when purchasing a home. And this information goes out to you even before you even look at homes. So what do you need to do? So you and your significant other, or you are sitting on the couch by yourself, whatever it might be, you sit there and that decision is made to purchase a home, that you want to look into purchasing a home. So there are two things you need to do at that point in time. Number one, and the primary thing you need to do, is if you make the conscious decision to purchase a home, you need to figure out your financing. How are you going to purchase it? Okay, some people immediately jump on and start looking online at Zillow or Trulia, Realtor.com, start looking at houses, getting all happy, looking at everything they can afford, or they think they can afford. But the reality is, before you even get to that point, you really need to find out what you can afford. You need to go to a mortgage broker, and you need to, or a direct lender if you prefer, and you need to figure out what you can afford. And here's what I want to talk about. There is a lot that goes into qualifying someone for a loan. And a lot of people think it's just a matter of, well, my FICO score is, I have 780 FICO. And, well, that's one factor. They say, well, I make really good income. That's another factor. But there is a lot of other things that go into determining whether you're ultimately going to get that loan again. So there's a difference between a pre-qualification and an actual loan approval. A pre-qual is where you go in and they take a look at your income, they look at your debts, they look at your FICO score, and they make a kind of a determination that you fit in the general parameters. An approval is actually when you've gone through underwriting and you've actually, an underwriter has actually looked at everything in your file. Now let me give you an example of something you guys probably don't even know exists. Let's say you're renting an apartment right now for $1,200 a month. So you're renting this apartment for $1,200 a month. Let's say you got a big increase in your pay at work, and you think you can afford, let's say, you know, a $2,500 payment. So you're like, okay, you go and you get pre-qualified, everything looks hunky-dory. You go, you find a real estate agent, you go in there, you get a house, you get an escrow. Next thing you know, there's a problem. And you're like, well, what's the problem? What's taking so long? Underwriters are like goalies in soccer games. Their goal is to find everything possibly wrong with that file and kick it away. So one of the things that they could find in the situation I just told you is called payment shock. Payment shock is where the bank looks at what your current housing payment is and compare it to your new projected payment. And even though the math might indicate that you could afford it based upon your income, the bank might flag a payment shock issue because the new payment is so much higher than what you were paying before. And that can create a problem. And so it's one of those things that I'm just using this as an example to give you some of the things that have to be dealt with. So when you're looking at payment shock issue, you're like, well, wait a minute, you know, they can afford it based on their income, yes, but they're not used to paying that kind of a payment. They have no record of paying anything near that amount. So sometimes that can create problems for you when you're getting it. So the reason I tell you this is because it is very important for you to do a thorough job of getting yourself pre-approved or pre-qualified or pre-approved before you start looking for a home. And I want to tell you, it's a lot more than what you think it is. I mean, here's another thing. We have to source, as a mortgage broker, we have to source every income that you have. Let's say you're putting a deposit down. We need to know where that deposit came from. We need to know, and we need to document it. And we need to, and an underwriter might come back and say, well, when did you deposit it? Can you provide me some documentation to show where that came from? They look for everything. See, about 10, 12 years ago, it was easy as pie to get a loan. Seriously, and that's part of the reason why we ended up in the housing crisis, because everybody and their brother was getting a loan just by going down to, you know, one of these banks down here and just saying, yeah, I make $22,000 a month, and yeah, my credit's great, you know, so you end up in a house in Del Mar in no time. But the problem is, when you actually go through and underwrite it, of course none of these people were qualified. So now the pendulum has swung from one side to the other. So now the underwriters are really scrutinizing everything. So even my clients, see, I have a client who's a doctor, he's down in Chula Vista, and we were getting him a loan, and his debt to income ratio was 9%. So debt to income ratio is the ratio between all his debt, his revolving debt, right, his monthly payments, and his income. His income was so high that his ratio was around 9%. So what does that mean? That means that, you know, on paper, he made a ton of money. So it was easy for the bank to qualify him. The problem is that, you know, they still ran him through the gauntlet. He's like, well, I don't understand. Why do they keep asking me all these questions? My income's great, everything's great. It's because they scrutinize everything. Everything is and it's a difficult, stressful time when you're getting a loan. It is not easy. I always tell my clients that, you know, getting a loan is kind of like flying on an airplane. You get in the airplane, you take off, you're flying up there, you're cruising, and all of a sudden you run into turbulence. And sometimes you run into even more turbulence. And as it gets more turbulent, you know, you get a little worried and concerned. But, you know, the reality is, if you have a good pilot, if you have somebody that really knows what to look for and knows how to handle these issues, you know, you'll get through it just fine. But there will be turbulence. There will be times when, you know, I tell my clients, when I'm going to come to you and ask you for more information, don't panic. I'm telling you ahead of time, this is what's going to happen. We're going to submit the loan, they're going to look at it, and they're going to find every reason in the world to come up with to try to find a way to, you know, to condition us and find things that, you know, not necessarily to destroy the loan, but at least to scrutinize it. Now, I'm aware of that ahead of time, so I'm telling you, my job is to try to offset as many of those as possible before they even get it. But even if they do, I'm ready for it. Okay? So that's what you need. The first thing you need when you're looking to purchase a house is you need somebody who really understands the process from A to Z. Because to be honest with you, you don't understand it. I mean, it's a very complicated situation. There's a lot of real estate people that do not understand loans. I talk to them all the time. They have no concept of how loans work. To them, it's like, well, all I know is I submit an offer, we get approved, and they submit give me an approval, and they release contingencies on day 21. That's what I know. They have no idea what goes into it. They have no idea what kind of stress is involved in getting people through those, even if you're the most highly qualified person in the world. So the reality is you need somebody on your side that's going to fight for you, that's aware of all of these pitfalls before you even get to them, and there are ways to correct them. So you have to be aware of these types of things, and you have to go to somebody who really knows. So that's the first thing you need to do. The second thing you need to do is you need to find a quality real estate person to work with. And I'll tell you, I told you last week, I get calls all the time from people who are so disillusioned with the real estate process. They're in the middle of purchasing a home, or their escrow's falling apart. Something is happening, and they call me. And they're like, well, what do we do? How do we get out of this? And when I look at those situations, 9 times out of 10, I could have gotten, this would never have happened on someone like my watch. I mean, these things are all preventable. A lot of them are just happened by carelessness or lack of knowledge, or just bad advice, just simply put, bad advice. So you need to find somebody that really understands the process, and not the real estate process and the loan process. My advice to you would be to find a real estate professional who also understands loans, like myself, because understanding loans is really important, whether they do loans or not. To understand the process it's going to create a better environment for them to be able to anticipate potential problems. But after the break, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you should pick a real estate agent. What should you look for? What should you not look for? Because I'm telling you, it can make a big difference in your experience. And a lot of times you don't even know what you're missing until you have to call me. And that's not a good thing. So you're listening to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170, The Answer.